Hey everyone, it's Cory from the Bradshaw Boys, and before we get started with the episode, we wanted to tell you about a few things. We are currently rewatching Sex and the City and putting out 2 episodes every week. One is going here on our main feed, and the other episode is on our Patreon feed. We want to get a massive rewatch going with all of you to get ready for the Sex and the City reboot, and just like that. So please join us by rewatching all of Sex and the City by listening here and then catching all the episodes on our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Bradshaw Boys, it's just $5 a month. You get twice as many episodes as you do on the main feed, and you join us for the entire rewatch. I mean, what a crazy deal, right? It's super fun. We'll get all the episodes in before the reboot happens, and you get to catch everything and be there with us. The other thing is, if you follow us on our Instagram at the Bradshaw Boys, we just launched a face filter in stories called Who is Your Sex and the City Boyfriend? It'll tell you who your boyfriend is. You just point it at your face. It spins through a bunch of guys, and then look, your boyfriend is Steve. If you go to our Instagram, you can check it out on our profile, go to the filters, or look for it in the filter store, tag us, and then we'll repost you so the world can know who your boyfriend is. All right, enjoy the episode, everyone.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where 3 relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, wherein 3 guys who have never seen Sex and the City, mostly, watch it from the beginning until the end of the show.
Nope. That's not it.
No.
That's you. We right before we started, we were like, "Do you have it?" And
What is it?
Can Cory, can you just come in right now?
Do you want to
and
bring us in right now?
Yeah, why don't you just bring us in right now? Because you really botched that one, Kevin.
I'll say, okay, here we go.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, where 3 guys who've never seen Sex and the City work their way through the show for the first time, mostly.
So much better.
That
so
was
much
great.
I will
better.
say that is not the best we've done it. It's a little cleaner than that usually.
But you're on Theraflu, and so
I am on a little bit of Theraflu. I'm getting over a cold. I'm not sick anymore, but I'm still medicated, and
you nailed it.
I know.
I'm completely healthy, and I couldn't.
Yours was like if someone's like, just tell me the gist. And you're like, it's 3 guys that have never... Well, so the show's Sex and the City, but there's 3 guys who haven't seen it, but they are now, and it's the first time for them to see it mostly.
Mostly.
But good energy.
Yeah.
It had good energy.
It had a lot of personality.
When
which
you were
is true.
delivering that, how much were you holding the word mostly in the back of your head? And
That was-
when were you going to,
I
were
didn't
you
know
worried
what-
about that the whole time?
I was worried about it the whole time.
There's
I was
a-
like, beginning, middle, or end. We'll just pepper it all over.
Just throw it in. There's a thing in Steve Martin's autobiography where he talks about his main memory of doing comedy is standing on stage and being like, I'm talking to the audience, but I'm in my head knowing what I have to do 2 minutes from now, and I'm in 2 places at once. And I feel like when you did that, you were
Yeah.
just like,
It was-
I got to say mostly. At some point in the next 6 seconds, I've got to say mostly.
That was it. Only Steve Martin is good. I feel like this is a seminal episode. This
It
is
is.
episode 9,
This is episode 9.
and this is incredibly exciting.
yes,
We have an incredible guest.
we do.
I think we've already been talking. We had to start the show, and we have to get back into the energy because we've already had such a great conversation. We have Dan Clay,
Hi.
also known as Carrie Dragshaw,
That's right.
the internet phenom.
hmm Dan, welcome to the Bradshaw Boys.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
We're very, very excited to have you. We also, I
Likewise.
think, kind of couldn't believe that we got you. We just like reached out to you on the internet, and we were like, I was like, guys, Dan's in. We
Right.
were really excited.
Well, internet famous is very different than real famous. I'm actually
Still
quite
famous.
accessible.
Still famous.
Yeah. Is it how long have you why don't you just explain what happened
Yeah,
from the beginning,
Yeah.
so-
I mean,
for
I
people that
hardly
don't
even
know.
really know what happened.
Yeah.
But I can explain the chronology. So I dressed up as Carrie Bradshaw for Halloween. It had been kind of like a bucket list item for me. Like I loved Sex and the City growing up. Like it took a certain amount of time for me to be comfortable and confident enough to slip on a tutu. But that time did come, and I love Sex in the City, obviously. And so I wanted to like do it right. And so actually patriciafield.com sells a Carrie tutu. So I went straight to the source and got a tutu and like tried on like 25 different pink tank tops to make sure I had the perfect hue. And so I did put a lot of energy into making sure that it was like a proper homage. And then I just posted a picture on my own Instagram account. Just had probably like 700 friends following me at that time, with no aspirations for internet fame. Just wanted to make my friends smile on Halloween. And then I went out, and then I came back home, and my phone had like exploded, and it had, however these things happen, it had gone viral. Like a bunch of Sex in the City blogs had seen it. It's some way, somehow, the queen herself, Sarah Jessica Parker, had seen it. Patricia Field had seen it, and they all said
unbelievable.
They all said amazingly kind things.
So cool.
And that day, I had just been like messing around with a friend. I live right near the Carrie apartment. We took a few other pictures that day, just like at Magnolia Bakery, and that'll be coming soon, guys. And I still had them, so I was like, what if I just like kept posting them? Like, would people still care? And I posted some more now with like a Carrie style musing, like a couldn't help but wonder kind of thing. And people stayed. It seemed to make them smile. And it just seemed like a really fun escape for me, but also a really simple way to just like, I don't know, spread a little positivity and love. So I bought some new outfits.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
It's
What
always-
year? Sorry, go ahead. You asked your question.
Sorry. It's always like, it's never like, so I knew people were going to love this. And so it's always, whenever you hear something like that, there's like I did not mean for this to happen.
Yeah.
Quality,
it was like, it was so, I mean, like beyond unexpected. Like it didn't even cross my mind that anything would, like it was Halloween. Everybody posts a picture of their Halloween costume online. So it hadn't even entertained the possibility of like, what if thousands of people see this picture?
That's crazy.
So
What year? Do you remember what year this was?
yeah, no, it's just like 2 Halloweens ago. So
Oh my
Halloween
gosh.
2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know. She's been busy.
And when did you come up with the name Carrie Dragshaw?
So that was like, it was pretty early. I mean, it's pretty like obvious when you reflect on it. It's like, well, naturally that would be the name. I was actually surprised that there hadn't existed
It's so
before.
good.
Like with, it's obviously like a huge show with my people. So like the fact that like a Carrie Dragshaw didn't exist yet, I was like, wow. But I think it was like maybe the 3rd or 4th picture that I posted, because I was starting to enjoy like the caption writing as much as the picture. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of clever. And so I gave her a name, but still not with the, even when I was posting more, like I never thought that I would still be doing, like I always assumed that there would be one day I would post a picture and it would be greeted with silence.
Yeah.
And then I would just, go back to my life of posting pictures of my dog. And but yeah, that never happened.
And your most recent picture, a dream of yours came true.
Yeah. I mean, not even a dream. Like I wouldn't have even had the idea to dream of that. But yeah, I was on Watch What Happens Live, Andy Cohen's show, and he's good friends with Sarah Jessica Parker. And I was on the show that she was on, and it was like absolutely terrifying because like it was also completely surreal in an almost like existential way. Like it didn't even really think that we sort of lived on the same planet. I've like watched her in the fictional world of whether it's Sex in the City or any number of movies. So the idea that we could even physically exist in the same room was already like the premise was kind of blowing my mind. And then she was beyond kind. I mean, truly beyond kind. Like but like even during commercial breaks and even after the show, just going out of her way to be. And I'm not even being false humility. Like I was so nervous and incoherent.
Yeah.
And like after I started like talking to her about my manicure, and I'm like, wait, you're meeting your idol. Why are you spending 35 seconds talking about your manicure? Like, get your shit together.
Well, that I watched the clip, and it wasn't like Andy Cohen was like, explain what you did, and then she's like, that's great. She was like raving.
It was crazy.
Giving you a review,
It was crazy.
like what you do is amazing. I was like, it's not even what I expected when I saw the clip.
Oh, I mean, and also because I really do. I mean, I spend a lot of time trying to make sure it's like a very respectful and loving homage, and not ever a spoof, because it's like obviously I love the show. But two, like I really, really enjoy the process of crafting the captions and making them little stories and building on the as I'm sure you're already by episode 9 already getting a grasp of like a very iconic, memorable speaking style that does have a certain rhythm that you can mimic pretty easily if you pay attention to like the certain notes that she hits. So the fact that she spent so much time talking about the captions and the fact that she even reads like it just baffles me, and it was like really a great joy for me.
That's so amazing.
That's so crazy.
That's so cool.
I think all of us, maybe a little bit, me maybe the most, coming into it blind, I expected to be a little snarkier watching it, just being like, this show's like,
Totally.
I was like, I'll be the devil's advocate, since like Corey and John have both seen a few episodes, and I'll talk like, but it sucked me in like pretty quickly to be like, I love being in this world. So
totally.
You thought you were going to be a Miranda.
I thought
You came in as a Miranda.
I thought, and
in Miranda,
the red hair?
Miranda's very like Miranda is definitely the most modern of the Sex and the City character. Like she's kind of the like anytime you talk to a younger, because when I was originally like nobody wanted to be a Miranda. Like if somebody called you a Miranda, it was like, how dare you? like everybody, all like everybody wanted to be, the more like, out at night kind of ones. But I think Miranda has aged in the fictional sense like really, really well. And I think the show in so many ways, whether it's the fashion or certain perspectives, was really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I think like Miranda can stand for like there's this great line that it like totally passed me by the first time watching it, but Charlotte is talking to everyone at brunch and she's like, oh, let's all go take this seminar on how to please a man, and then Miranda goes, I know how to please a man, just give him all your power. And like when I first watched it, I had no context for that. I had never given a man all my power. Like I had no reference. But as you age, you like look back on it and you're like, wow, that she knew. Yeah, she knew what she was talking about.
That's such a like 2018,
totally.
2017
it's so,
quote said 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I think the show gets a lot of flack for because truly, I mean, certain perspectives, and we'll even see one in the episode we watch now, like it is a little grating with the modern perspective, like certain perspectives on gender and sexuality and in race. But there are a lot of other elements that were very progressive and exciting to see on TV at the time. So.
Where were you in life when you first started watching the show?
So when it was on originally, I was very much in the closet. And I actually have a very clear recollection of a bunch of sorority girls coming over to my frat dorm room to watch the season finale. And I was in the background, like pretending to hate the show.
What? This is great.
But there was she comes out in this like mint green tulle skirt in the finale.
Is this the season one finale or
the series.
Finale, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She comes out in this like mint green tulle skirt with this like tight top and little jacket and little muff. And I'm like sitting there like pretending to hate it, like having my frat boy face on, but inside I'm just like, oh my God, that's amazing. Holy shit, what's happening? And you know, it wasn't until I like moved to New York where I actually, which was like 6 or 7 years later, where I actually like properly watched it, similar to how you guys are doing now.
Yeah.
Like started with season 1, episode 1.
That's so awesome.
And then like from the get-go, it was just like, oh my God, like how have I been denying myself this for so many years? Like it was so, and I do have like a lot of superficial things in common with I mean, I live right near the actual apartment.
Yeah.
And I also I love the glittery side of New York nightlife. So from the get-go, I just was like totally in the, you know, sort of documentary that kind of the first few episodes are.
Have you recreated that outfit that you saw?
Yes, and it's still my favorite. It took forever, but it's still my favorite outfit.
That's
I've
awesome.
Done. It was
That's
one
great.
of the
That's so
earlier
amazing.
ones. Yeah, so reclaimed it.
Where'd you grow up?
In Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where'd you go to college?
Northwestern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, in Evanston?
So yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Member of the Lodge fraternity. Shout out to the Lodge.
And did you come out in college or once you moved to New York? Or?
I mean, I didn't technically come out in college, but also like my attempt to be in the closet wasn't exactly successful. Like nobody was that surprised. Like the leap to Carrie Dragshaw impersonator was like not too far for any of my frat brothers to grasp. And I'm still close with a ton of people. Like I was in the closet, but I wasn't exactly repressed.
Yeah.
So nobody was that surprised.
That's great.
Amazing.
Well, we're gonna go watch an episode. You know what episode we're gonna watch already, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I prepped. I watched
That's great.
it. Yeah.
Did you already watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have before. of
episode
course.
9.
Yeah. I mean,
Episode 9,
this will be the
Turtle and Hare.
97th time that I've watched it.
We're gonna go watch that episode, and then we'll come back, and then we'll talk about it.
Amazing.
Episode 9, The Turtle and the Hare. Carrie is unhappy when Mr. Big tells her he never wants to get married again. Stanford Blatch proposes to her in order to please his grandmother and inherit his part of the family fortune. Samantha's latest pet project is the turtle, one of New York's most successful yet style-impaired bachelors. Charlotte becomes addicted to a vibrator called the rabbit, and the girls stage an intervention. And now, back to the boys.
Hey, everybody. Oh, wow.
What an episode.
The turtle and the hare. Everyone have good breath? Everyone check their...
Ooh. You know, one of the things for good breath, you just got to keep hydrated. It's just
Really?
water. Yeah.
I
That's
notice
what
that when
people say.
I'm at the gym and I'm like, I haven't drank enough water at the gym, I notice I have some stank breath.
Yeah.
That happens.
That's the thing when people
It's
say
water.
they have coffee breath, it's like the last thing you drank is coffee and you're kind of dehydrated. Just spritz it up with some water.
Hey, not only are we here talking about Sex and City, but we're giving you life tips.
Yeah.
Life tips from Cory over there.
A couple hygiene tips for you out there.
Turtle and the hare.
Great
Great episode.
Great
A
episode.
lot going on in the best way.
Lots.
This was the spinning. They were spinning a lot of plates,
Mm-hmm.
and not a single one broke. It's
There was no talking headshots, guys.
There were none.
There's
There
none-
was,
there's
didn't
none-
waste
there's
time
none of
with
this.
that.
Yeah.
one part where there was a Carrie VO and she kind of turned to camera during the VO, but that was it. And there were no, there were no character.
I mean, you know I love the talking headshots and the basketball courts.
They're not over yet.
Okay.
Were there? I was wondering if we were getting out.
No, they're not done yet.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I love those characters, and I love when they come in, and but yeah, we're bummed that they weren't on that episode.
I do think we got to spend a little time with Stanford, which was good,
That was great.
and we got to spend a little time with all of our loved ones. It was like well balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the genius of the show is
Yeah.
that, and they're all like, they're all tight plots.
Yeah.
Like they're all like they
Yeah.
have a theme about settling, and Charlotte is settling for the vibrator, Samantha is settling for Turtle, Carrie is settling for Stanford. Like they're all revolve around.
I didn't
a
even totally
very-
get that. Now I love
a
it even
very, very
more.
I know.
specific that then allows, because I think like the genius of the show is it allows you to take this super, super specific life scenario that very few people can technically relate to, you know, like going on a date with a really rich person with bad breath. And turn it into this universal thing of like, oh, wow, yeah, there have been moments in my life when I've settled for something that was, you know, beneath my visions of grandeur and all
Right.
of that. So, but it's all, they
Yeah.
stay on theme. And there's always like some that are super playful and just silly, like the Charlotte one, with mixed in with some that are like more serious. Like Samantha's plotline this time is a little bit serious. Like
Yeah.
we see her getting vulnerable. Like I
Right.
think Stanford's plotline is like it's playful, but it's also serious. Like he's being disinherited because he's gay. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a serious
This is really serious
thing.
And when it got vocal alls from all of us when the date comes up and is like, no, this isn't going to work,
I
Yeah.
you know? And then when his response to it, to Carrie is like, this has been me for 15 years. It was like,
it's
oh,
a great
wow.
line
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
15 years of rejection is a lifestyle.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
man.
30 is a phase.
I wrote
15
that
years
one
of
down.
rejection is a lifestyle. But yeah, and I think, you know, there are examples that are like that is, even though obviously placing a personal ad is out of date, like that sentiment is so current.
That's
like you
like,
could
yeah,
imagine.
That's like, oh, I signed up for Tinder or whatever.
You could
yeah.
imagine Stanford being on Grindr and having that exact
Totally.
same, like, you know, people aren't reaching out to me because I don't fit the ideal, like, headless torso body type.
Right.
Like the channel was very different, but the emotion is
If anything,
same.
now it's more relatable because
Right.
everyone can be like, back in the day, it was like, that was a big thing to place a personal ad. Now it's like, that's the main way people meet anybody.
Right, totally.
Yeah, totally. We're
Yeah.
all just personal ads.
Yeah.
Do you want to, John, do you want to just try and give a quick rundown of the episode and then we'll get
like, I
deep
think-
into
I
it?
think
Quick
Dan did
top line.
a
Yeah,
great job.
I feel
It was kind of about settling, and the main storyline is Carrie finding out that Big doesn't want to get married. They went to their friend Brooke's wedding and kind of realized that Brooke, who is the what they say, that prom every single weekend was
Right.
a different prom
Yeah.
for her, and she gets married. She had a really brutal quote. What was it? I
Oh,
wrote
she
it down.
said you should always marry someone that loves you more than you love them.
Right, which
And ooh,
which I think, well, we can talk about that in a little bit, but that got Carrie thinking, and she, called Big after the wedding, and he said, he's been married once, doesn't want to get married ever again, and so that kind of makes her start processing the idea of maybe she's settling, or what does that look like in New York. And Charlotte gets introduced to the rabbit via Miranda. And at first she's a little bit resistant to it, but she comes around when she sees that it's pink and
it's cute.
and cute looking, which I thought was hilarious.
Just so you know, the rabbit is a vibrator
Yeah.
with a little,
it's got a little rabbit on it.
like a little rabbit.
Right.
Which, what's that for? I'm just kidding. That's
So-
Wrong guess to know that.
Samantha ends up going out with the turtle. What was his name? Bernie Turtle Tower.
Yeah.
Great name. He has bad breath, but she is at a date with a gentleman that she met at the wedding.
He just needs to hydrate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I need.
She gets stood up kind of mid-date and ends up getting intercepted by him, has dinner with him, and realizes, that someone's being nice to her. She was in a vulnerable spot, and she tries to kind of make him her work in progress. And I don't know if there was one with a storyline really with Miranda unsettling. Was there?
No, she like put things in gear. But
Yeah, she
then went into the background. For this one.
And then we have Stanford, who, like we said earlier, puts out a personal ad, is kind of sick of the competitiveness of being a gay man in New York, and ends up kind of getting rejected from that. And after going to the ballet with Carrie, decides that maybe they should get married. Has a great scene, but a heartbreaking scene with his grandmother as well. So, and tons of story, tons of plot. It was
Lots
a
of
great
story,
episode.
Lots of scenes.
What I could assume, but what because I saw you nod when you said the competitiveness of the gay dating scene. What's he talking about?
I mean, I think there is, and it's probably the case for everyone, but it just happens to be the scene that I'm familiar with. Like, there is an expectation, a desire that you're kind of perfect on all levels, like making a ton of money, have a perfect body, have great face, like be the king of nightlife, and just be really crushing it on all dimensions. And I think that can be exhausting. And it has been that way since, obviously since Stanford. And you have to have, the perfect Fire Island house and also the perfect apartment in New York and the perfect job and also know where all the great parties are and have perfect abs. And it's like, oh my God. But nobody does. Nobody actually is that ideal, but everybody is striving toward it, or not everybody, obviously, but gets pretty worn out by it. And I think his plot line is even more relevant today because at least then, like, you had a chance to meet someone in a non-superficial way. Maybe you're just like looking for an Ed Harris type.
That was such a great
and
thing.
now, I mean, obviously everything is, leading with your picture and leading with, and depending on the app, it's either your face or your body.
Yeah, I know when I first put a Tinder Bumble profile together, it was just threw stuff up because people were talking about it. I was like, I'll try this out. And then and that was like fine. But then it was crazy, like a month later, 2 months later, once it started blowing up. And this was like early on. Then after things don't work out the way you want, it was crazy just being like, oh yeah, how do you want to represent yourself to someone to go on a date with you? And then you just realize all the stuff that you end up, like, I didn't think of myself as very... I'm pretty content with who I am.
Right.
But then all of a sudden I was like, I quit telling people I was a comedian because people wouldn't go on. They'd be like, no.
Oh, totally.
And so I started saying writer instead, and I wouldn't mention that on a first date or two until. And
did you have like a toupee in your profile picture also?
I had a toupee.
Yeah.
Did you you had spray on abs?
I would have on hats in a few because I am a bald man, but I would make sure in it that I had a hat off in one because I didn't want to go on a date and then they're like, oh, you're bald? So I would make sure people saw that, but you just end up having all of these things of how you're presenting yourself.
Right.
And I was like, I would never thought about this when I was just meeting people and connecting and then getting dinner or whatever.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing more humbling, I think, than like going through your pictures to find the profile picture and just being like, I'm just a disgusting human being. Like, none of these will do. I need a new haircut. I need probably a new face.
And then asking someone, the one that you think is great, showing it to someone and then being like, actually, this one's way better than that.
Totally.
And you're
Why?
Like, I thought I looked great in that picture.
This
and
is
they
my
say
winner.
they say something that you didn't even think about. You're like, oh, it's because my hair. No, the bag's under your eyes. You're like, what?
Your nose looks huge in
I
that
know.
picture.
And I think this is exactly like why Sex and the City is so enduring, is like they very quickly move from like a very specific scenario that is probably objectively dated by now to like a universal emotion that we can all connect to. And it's like, then you get...
even him just standing on the street after posting the Ed Harris personal ad and seeing people walk up, like even if you've done internet dating or not even internet dating, just like a setup from a friend, every person that walks in that coffee shop or that bar, you're like, is that, I can't tell. Is that him?
Yeah.
Is that her? Is that him? And then
he's so good.
finally the one comes up and then he's just like, this
So
isn't going to
brutal.
work.
I know.
That's so bad.
And he looks exactly like him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. And Willie Garson he's so good. That's who plays Stanford.
Yeah.
He's perfect.
What's he in now? Is he been in?
He was
much
in
since?
Suits, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think he was in Suits. We'll find that out. We'll look that up. That's a fun fact.
He's still working.
I think it was interesting to see Stanford come up because he doesn't come up to like 3/4 of the way through the episode.
Yeah.
And then he's a whole new storyline with Carrie. And then there's all the grandmother stuff, which it was interesting. The grandmother kind of is like what Carrie could be. because the grandmother's like, I used to be a career woman,
Right.
and I gave it up to have kids.
Even the
And
picture where she's holding the baby
Yes.
looked a lot like
it looks like Sarah
Carrie.
Jessica Parker, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's also wearing a Chanel suit.
Yeah.
Coco Chanel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she says she has like 4 Chanel suits that are designed.
Totally. And it's just Carrie. Like, this is, I mean, Carrie always, like, she never has the answers. Like, she never even really knows what she wants. Like, she wants to get married, but part of her doesn't want, obviously, like the wedding that she went to in the beginning of the episode. And, maybe she wants to have kids, but she doesn't want to give up her career. Like, you see all of these questions bouncing around in her head. And even though, the sort of writing style, all the questions, and maybe and I couldn't help but wonder, and all of that, like, it is spoofable. But I think it is what makes her character someone that you really lean into, because she doesn't know, and so you start like participating with her wrestling with these big questions about
I thought
life and love.
I thought they did a really good job showing that when she's like tasting the food at her and Big are cooking, and it's right after the scene with the grandmother, and he's trying to flavor the soup or whatever he's making perfectly.
Needs more salt.
And he's like, needs more salt, and he's like, what do you think? And she's like, I do want to have kids in a family, and I'm like, that is such an accurate portrayal of someone who's wrestling with those like questions in the back of their head. It's like their intentions would be to say, hey, let's carve out a time to talk about our future and our kids. But those questions are bubbling so much inside their head that like the first opportunity they just explode forth. And it's like, I was watching that. I was like, man, that's just such a inconvenient time to have that conversation. But it was so real. It's so accurate
So
that
real.
if you were thinking about something like that, you would just kind of explode with.
And that's
I do want this.
His response was definitely like, I thought we were making dinner.
Oh,
Yeah, he was like,
thought we were
just
but
wanna
also
have
like
fun.
these are my, like, and this may be controversial, but these are my least favorite moments in Sex and I love them because they're real and true, and that is exactly what Carrie would do and what Big would say. But I hate it because the end of the episode, Carrie comes around to Big's perspective.
Yeah.
Carrie comes around to, just live in the moment.
We're
We're
just
just having fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I want her to do. Like, I definitely don't want her to be like, I need to know right now whether or not. But you'll see as time goes on, like, there are a lot of moments where, like, she brings something up with Big and he gives her nothing.
Yeah.
And she adapts.
Yeah.
And I like her more as, the brash, cigarette smoking, independent woman. And
This
Like the scene when they were laying in bed and she
Yeah.
was smoking the cigarette.
Love
That's
that.
like that's a great
Love that,
that's a great
Carrie.
Carrie moment.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about getting married to Stanford, and
totally.
Yeah.
well, who you gonna have sex
Ms.
with?
Blatch.
I have you.
Yeah.
It's a badass.
I know.
Already we're only in episode 9, but there's already a few of those. Like when they are standing there in Union Square or whatever, it ends with her saying something, and then they just look up. I forget. It was a few episodes
It was
ago.
the episode where she's with, is it Justin Theroux?
Yeah.
She's with Justin Theroux.
Yeah.
But the same sort of thing. It's like they really need to work out. They need to work on their communication. And like John said, sit
Totally.
down and be like, let's really discuss this.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know.
Let's have a DTR talk.
Right.
Let's define this relationship.
Is this 6 seasons of this?
A lot of back and forth.
There, I
A
mean,
lot of back and
he
forth.
never gives, but it's real. It's so real. This
Yeah.
is what makes it like the Carrie that I want would make for a very unfulfilling TV show, because the Carrie that I want would have left him like the second.
That he wouldn't commit.
Yeah, like would have just been like, no, I'm worth way more than that.
Right.
Screw you.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to be like fake versions of myself to trot out to try to impress you. And then I give all this energy and you give nothing.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there are moments way later when he starts to give something, but the majority of it is like her trying so hard for it to work and just accommodating him. And then him just existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There is a lot of him, like anytime she's in 3 other storylines, like she's in the Rabbit storyline,
Yeah.
she's in the Stanford storyline, and then she just calls him and he's just at home. He's like, hey, what's up, babe? He's always
know.
just kind of there in his life. and then she calls on him, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I'm here. Do you want to hang out?"
Totally. And there's never really an integration. Like there's never and there'll be episodes where it's like awkward when they try to like almost like combine lives. But no, it's never like Big is never flowing in the plot lines the way that you'll see, Charlotte in multiple plot like Big is always like a separate entity.
That's interesting.
Which I think is meaningful.
Yeah.
Well, there's like a truthfulness watching it to that. It's like there's this one person that in so many different people's lives, if I know that are dating or married or whatever, that some people seem like they have it so easy that it's like John, you met Katie, you guys dated, fell in love, got married, like pretty, I'm not saying your relationship was perfect, but it's pretty much like traditional in the way it happened. And we'd check in with you guys and you'd be like, yeah, we love each other. We're happy. You guys had a pretty seamless meeting to getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And you see so many relationships around that it's like, it's way more, we relate to it because it's like that person that sticks around in your life and it's not the normal thing that you thought it was going to be like. And you're like, I like this person and we have this connection. I meet other people and it's not there. I should just get over this person.
Right.
And they just like weave in and out of your life.
And they never go away. And like, I think that's also even more true with like how digitally connected we stay with all of our, like the one who got away, like never goes away anymore. Like they're always following you. And that, I mean, obviously is the case with Carrie and Big too. Like even as she technically moves on, like he's always there. And I think it's what makes, so many people, when you just chat about the show, like they have their Big.
Yeah.
The guy who kind of strings them along and doesn't give them enough for them to ever be truly confident in the relationship. Like Harry is never actually like, oh, I am confident that this guy, and even to the point of that really sad line, like always end up with someone who loves you more than you love them.
Right.
Like she never, until very, very long, like is really confident that like, wow, she's got somebody who loves her deeply and who would do anything for her and who would sacrifice for her. And that's what makes, the end of the series so painful in certain episodes, because this has been happening for so long from this very first episode. Like he won't even say like, oh yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
kind of just like silence.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
Do you guys think everyone has a Mr. Big in their life? Do you think all those Mr. Bigs also have Mr. Bigs? Like, is
Like, does
everyone
Mr. Big
Right.
have a
Oh,
Mrs.
I
Big?
think about this
is
all the
everyone
time.
always like have that person in their life that they're like chasing and frustrated with? And
Or
always
are
kind
there like 10 Mr. Bigs for the entire world?
Yeah. Like, is
Are there just like, do we all like
Right.
point to the
Is
same?
or is half the population a Carrie and the other half is a Big, and it's
Right.
like there's that
They're
constant
chasing
tension
each other.
between.
Well, the other thing I wondered is Carrie Big's big? Like, is Carrie, like Mr. Big is like, oh, I can kind of just
Right.
take it or leave it. But at any point, he's with this glamorous woman who's super successful, and he's really just thinking about Carrie, and he's kind of like can't get over it. He's like kind of wishy-washy on it and keeps being drawn back to her.
Yeah.
Because anytime Carrie calls, even if he's out with someone else, he
He's
sort of
still-
responds.
yeah.
He's
And
still
He's
there.
still there.
it was pretty heartbreak. I watched the Grateful Dead documentary that's on Amazon this past week.
Hard left.
No, trust me, it comes right back.
Comes back.
But it was like he's at the peak of his career.
Big?
And
Mr. Big?
Mr.
When
Mr.
Christopher,
Jerry
Garcia.
Big
when
Sia.
Christopher Noth showed up at the 1972 concert in Saratoga. Yeah.
But he's at the peak of his career, and then he does this interview with this lady he did an interview with like years ago, and they're just doing an interview, and then he's asked her to marry him, and then they end up like going on a vacation. They get married, and he told her like, "You're the only person I've ever loved," and they're like at the top of their thing. Then they get married. She goes on tour, and then she calls him out for his drug use. He's doing heroin, and the second she does it, he's like, "Yeah, you can leave now," and they get divorced. And it was that thing that I was like, was just interested in the documentary. I don't know their music well or whatever, but it was like he was walking around and had playing in front of 100,000 seat arenas and thinking about like this one person. And then when they come into their life and are 3-dimensional and real, it was like, yeah, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it was like, so Jerry Garcia definitely had a Mrs. Big,
It's true.
Totally.
but it was heartbreaking. Like,
yeah.
And this is dead.
well, and maybe that's, I think, what the real person is always different than what you think
Always.
of. There's people I've like dated before, and you're like, man, that was awesome, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. I just like remember spending 4 weeks like
Yeah.
trying to convince myself it was fine, and then breaking
Yeah.
it off, and then a year later, you're just like, man, that was great.
But
Yeah.
You know?
I think Mr. Big's more of like for me at least more of an allegory. I think like Mr.
Yes.
Big can represent a career or a way that you want to look or a guy in your life. It doesn't just have to be
Yeah.
relationally. There's sometimes
And they intentionally, I think, leave him a bit blank.
Mhm.
Like they don't follow him without Carrie. They don't follow him the way that they follow
true.
other characters.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
you'll see Miranda running around without Carrie, and you'll learn so much about her insecurities and all of this, but you never get that.
Even him not having a name represents
Right,
that. That it's
exactly.
like
He's not
this
very
is,
nuanced, and he's
Right.
always kind of in a black and white suit. He's
Right.
always kind of like this archetypal, successful New York guy in a black car.
Yeah.
He's like your stand-up joke about what it's like to date New York City. Like he is like an allegory
true.
of
The
the
stand-
abusive, like not
Yeah.
physically abusive,
right,
but
right,
just
right.
like
Yeah,
the thing you're chasing after that you shouldn't be.
exactly. The joke
Yes.
itself, truncated,
Yes.
is that New York City is L.A. is like this girl that's a Barbie type cheerleader, and she drives you around in a Jeep, and you eat burritos and read screenplays with her. But New York is like a girl that you see that is, you look at her across the room, and she's in a black leather jacket, and she's smoking, and she looks like a hot version of Jack White. And then she picks you up in a cab. The cab pulls up behind you. You see she's driving, and then as soon as you jump in the cab, she just punches you in the face repeatedly
Yeah.
and swipes your credit card, and then kicks you out in deep Bushwick, and you get bed bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
And
Right.
says
and then you're like, this is
But
the
at
greatest.
some
And then
point,
you're like-
yeah,
and then you're like,
at
this is
some
the most
point
fun
you
I've ever
have,
had in my life. I love this.
amazing sex. With
Yeah,
her.
exactly.
Also.
Well, no,
so you like, yeah,
yes.
so you like can't ever
Everything
leave
you're
her.
doing with her while she's in the cab,
Is
you love it. It's the most
incredible.
exhilarating
Yeah.
thing in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get away from it.
Yeah,
That is-
I get it.
But it's like it's very blanket.
I think we talked about this because it is a character in the show. The city itself,
Oh, for sure.
it's still fun, even after living here for like, I think I've been here 9.5 years, just watching it and being like, oh, they're on Worcester Street.
Oh,
I love the
totally.
neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And I
love-
think like the earlier episodes are more the sort of like documentary style. So you'll see as time goes on, like they do less with sort of periphery characters, like the fact that this started at a wedding that you'll never see that
Right,
woman
right.
again. And like it's these documentary style views. They talk about the average $100,000 wedding,
Yeah.
like people that went to Dalton, like they go to Lavo on their date. Like these are very real
Yeah.
New York things. And one of my friends, actually, he's a bit older, and he was like in the scene when Sex and the City was on, and he talked about how you would like watch it live, and then you would go where they
no
went,
way.
and
And
there
it would
would
probably
be
be
like a
packed.
fabulous like
Oh my
party
gosh.
with like Patricia, like everybody would be there, and it would just be like glamorous and sexy. And
Oh, man.
everything.
It's
yeah.
so
It was
incredible.
really,
You
it was
can-
like a star maker of a place for place.
Oh,
like the show
totally.
would like make a place.
I mean, Magnolia Bakery was on the
Magnolia
show
Bakery.
for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And like there's hasn't
still riding
stopped
that.
being a line since then.
That's what you can imagine. To like, there's tons of shows that film in New York now, but if you walked up and saw like, oh, they're filming Sex in the City, I bet people would know even before the episodes come out,
Yeah.
right?
For
If they
sure.
were like filming at a restaurant or
Oh yeah.
And it was so real. I mean, certainly it's portraying a very glamorized view of New York, and it's not gritty, and no character is really, having to like struggle to make it here. But it is real in other ways. Like those magazine launch parties, they do exist. Club Chaos, like these types of things like do exist. And that is like, I do feel like, obviously it's sensationalized, and you can't be
Yeah.
a journalist and have a $40,000 dress and all of these types of
Right.
things. But like there is a reality to the portrayal of
Well,
New York, I think.
that's why people love it though.
Right.
Whenever people criticize it that hard, I'm like, yeah, you know
You're
what?
overthinking it.
They don't. on Breaking Bad, like none of that was realistic too. That's why people watched it.
Yeah.
That's
Dan, was when you watched Sex and the City growing up at Northwestern and before that, did that help kind of plant a desire to move to New York?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I
didn't.
didn't watch it seriously until actually getting here. So
Okay.
the impact for me was more like a desire to make the most out of New York.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of when you're here watching it, you're like, oh, I got to step up my game.
Yeah.
Like I need to be going to more Wednesday night parties.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe you shouldn't, but like it does, at least for me, it like inspired me to, cause even just in this episode, like they go to a fabulous wedding, they go to see the ballet, they go to a party.
Yeah.
Like it just are like, you're like, this is all in my backyard. These are all real places. Like I do want to bounce around a little bit. I want to have these experiences. I want to have, I want to have heartbreak because like, look at that.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
There was in December, Cory and I went with one of our friends for his birthday. He wanted to go to the Met, and I'd never been to the Met, the opera, and we saw Magic Flute. And then
fabulous.
afterwards, we walked, and it was like kind of snowy out. And then we walked and had cocktails at the Plaza, and then we went to a dive bar. Stayed out way too late, but it was like it costs like $45 to go to the Metropolitan Opera House, and I don't want to do that every night. But I'm like, I've lived here 9 years and not seen an opera, and it was such a great night out. And I was like, this would have been. If I was 16, that would have been the highlight of my trip for a year to like go to an opera house and then go to this. So it was super fun. The whole time we were talking, we were like, this is like getting me pumped to do our podcast.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
But yeah, there's so much here that watching stuff like this, you're like, man, I've never been to the ballet. I got to take advantage.
Yeah, it like, allows you to live that like glamorous life.
Yeah.
Two things real quick. One, Stanford Blatch, Willie Garson, that's his name.
Yeah.
Right? He was on White Collar.
Oh,
That's the
love.
show he was on. He was on
Never
White
seen it.
Collar. He's been
On
in a bunch of other
USA.
USA. That's one of those shows that I've never watched any of those, and I have this theory that none of those shows actually exist, like White Collar and Suits, and what's the other one about doctors? Royal Pains.
Royal Pains, yeah.
All those ones, they're not real
Right,
shows.
like you've never watched it, you don't know anybody who's watched
It's
it,
just
but
a
like
poster campaign.
everybody is in it.
Yeah, completely. But the other thing was, I think we were saying this before we
The
started.
creators of White Collar and Royal Pains aren't going to be guests on the podcast now.
And they won't because they're not real shows. They will not be because they're not real shows. Actually, no, the whoever's marrying Prince Harry.
Who also was at Northwestern concurrently.
Are you serious?
Oh.
The princess?
Yeah.
Michelle.
Meghan
no,
Markle.
Meghan Markle.
Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
wasn't she
So
on
she was
White
a bit-
Collar?
Yeah, she was on.
Or she was on Suits. She was
Yeah.
on Suits. Yeah.
So yeah, I won't. I mean, it would be cool if I like had a deep relationship with her.
If you got invited to the
like,
wedding.
Yeah.
Carrie Dragshaw and Princess Meghan were hanging out in college. I think there was a little bit of overlap.
Some
but
crossover.
we
That's
didn't
so
have-
cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I wish
Yeah.
she was at that frat party where you saw the green tool dress.
Totally.
at the end.
I mean,
She
it
was
would
one
be
of the
such
people.
a full circle.
such a
It'd be amazing.
But before we started, I think you were saying that there was something you saw in this episode that, like, when you first saw it, you were like, "That's such a great Carrie move," and then seeing it now, was that in this episode?
Oh
that-
no, that's in the wait for it, but that's when she goes to Big's church.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So in a few episodes, it'll all make sense. But when I first watched it, I was like, "Hooray for love!" And
Yeah.
then when I watched it again, I was like, "Whoa, Carrie, that's real creepy."
Ooh. Okay.
Well, we'll
Stay tuned.
I can't wait. To
I already
see that
know the
one.
date we're going to watch it because
Yeah.
we have it
Yeah,
scheduled.
it's
So
good. I do think, like, one thing I think in this episode perfectly captures the modern tension with Sex and the City as it relates to being culturally relevant. So, big part of the plot line is obviously the rabbit, and it's pretty provocative at the time, and probably still would be today, to have a bunch of women talking about pleasuring themselves
Yeah.
on TV.
Yeah.
Like, it was like independent women, like, here we are, we're proud. But in the same breath, Charlotte says the like sort of cringe-worthy, like when she sees the rabbit for the first time, she goes, "Oh, pink, like for girls."
Yeah, exactly.
So you have like in the same plot line, this what I think is fascinating. Like on the one hand, pushing women forward.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, I'm not a woman, so I can't like speak articulately on that. But on the other hand, like embodying these feminine stereotypes, and it's existing in the same breath. And I just think it's kind of fascinating, and it's true in the same all throughout the show.
Yeah. I would love to. I bet there's an article out there about sales of that after.
Oh,
because I bet
it was insane. I'm sure
because then what happens? Charlotte gets addicted and doesn't even like leave their home. So I bet it was just
I thought it was a little unbelievable how willingly her friends were to like touch it and grab it and jam it in her purse.
after
maybe I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, but if I was coming to take away your dildo, Kevin, I would wear some dish gloves or something like that.
Bring some bleach to spray it down with.
Listen,
nothing against you. It's just
I liked that Carrie said that it came in a box in Japan, because I went to Japan last summer on a vacation, and there's a 5-floor sex shop in
That's amazing.
in the Akihabara neighborhood, I think it is, like the
yeah,
Electronic City neighborhood. And we were like, let's just go. It's like a tour. It feels like you're going to somewhere like Astor Place or something.
Yeah.
And the vibrators they have in those stores are insane. Like the way there's a little rabbit on there, there's like one that just has like a weird little alien that goes back and forth. And there's things that just like spin and light up and flash and make noises. It's like you're playing with like a mini lightsaber.
Right.
That was so on
Do they
point
have
that
the
came in
horse that Samantha was wanting?
Samantha wanted a horse on it.
Genius.
Does everyone here remember the first time you ever saw a horse's dick? Because I remember
Hard Left by Kevin Doyle.
So I was watching this documentary about horse dicks, and
We're slowly building franchises for this podcast. John wants to have a little sidebar called Steve Talk once we get to Steve.
I'm really
I'm
really into Steve.
But I feel like our other sidebar needs to be Hard Left by Kevin Doyle, where he just goes into a place.
The Steve plot is a beautiful, I
great.
think, like a very, very beautiful plot line.
I'm really excited to give some final thoughts on Steve.
when is Steve come in? Season,
Not very
season
good
3?
at remembering like exactly.
He's
the
later, right?
chronology. Yeah, he's a little later.
Steve Talk.
Yeah,
but horse penises.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
It was a very New York experience.
Wait, was yours a police horse?
It was a police horse, and we got off the subway. I was on my like 10th grade choir trip to New York, and we
Do they not have horse penises in Ohio?
I mean, I didn't see any.
Okay.
I'd been to like
everything's bigger in New York.
Yeah. I just remember we got off the subway, and there was one of the Central Park horses there, and this girl that named Lauren Hated, she was in our choir. She played Rizzo in Grease, and I played Kaniki. This was before that though, and she just got off, and she's like,
You took a hard left from your hard left story.
and she's like, look at that horse's penis, and like all these like 8th, 9th, and 10th graders just like looked at it, and everyone like started laughing, and we were like taking pictures on disposable cameras, and my mom still will be like, remember when we were on that trip to New York and Lauren Hated called out that said, look at that horse's penis, and it was very big, it was enormous. I mean, those things are huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're talking about the right show, because horses play a big role in Sex and the City, as do large penises.
We have to.
So there's an episode with a character called Mr. Too Big.
Oh,
Stay tuned for that.
who gets to spend time with Mr. Too Big?
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay. All right.
Surely it can't be Samantha, but maybe it will. We'll see.
Is that I've seen that in TV and stuff. I've never heard of a friend be like, yeah, too big. Never heard of anybody say that, but I don't know. Maybe it's out there. I'm also not in those rooms, I guess.
I read an article about the guy who has the largest penis in the United States, and it didn't. His life doesn't sound pleasant. It sounds.
How big is it?
Right.
It's huge. I mean, it's enormous, but everything is just difficult for him.
I guess like pants. Clothes to wear.
Yeah,
that would just be. I think that's a thing where it's like it's at some point it'd be like if you. I mean, I can't think of another thing to compare it to. If you had really really long arms, I don't know, but like if you have something that's like an abnormality to the point where that's probably not the same thing.
No, it's the same thing.
No, it's different. It's different. But it doesn't. That's something like I remember a friend in high school when we were listening to like Snoop Dogg Doggy Style for the first time, and there's like all these things about like having really big nuts, and my friend was like, "Why would you want to have huge testicles?
Why would you want
He's like-
elephantiasis in your
He's
balls?
like, why? You could just probably get someone pregnant faster. Like, it's not. I don't know if the science works with that, but like, it's like it's not a probably like average, good average.
Yeah.
a little better than average is probably enough.
That's where you want to be.
That's where you want to be. You don't want to be gigantic.
You hear that, Snoop Dogg? Change those lyrics.
Come on,
You're
Snoop
confusing
Dogg.
kids.
Come on, man.
What are you doing?
Maybe a hard left, but into the episode, I felt like directing wise, this episode was one of the best we've seen because
Yeah.
one thing we've seen in the first season, there's a lot of like just an episode will come up where there's all these like weird camera wipes or like they do like weird tricks.
Oh, yeah.
and there's a lot of the talking to camera.
They did have a split screen.
They
with
had the
Carrie
split screen,
Big.
and it felt a little dated, but it felt a little dated, but it was tasteful.
right,
It was
too.
right.
It was
It was
right
both.
for that
And you know what
moment.
was cool
They
is
were
in
in
that
the
split
same
screen,
beds.
they were in the same
Yeah.
beds. They looked the same. Like
Yeah.
that worked. That was the only crazy trick. But the thing that I thought was the coolest was when they go to do the rabbit intervention with
I was
Charlotte,
just gonna say
and
that.
they look like they're in like Matrix clothes. They're both in like long black
Totally.
jackets,
Yeah.
and it's a follow cam through the whole apartment.
Yeah.
And it's like a Matrix or like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
scene.
Yeah.
It was
totally.
it was really well done.
Yeah.
That was hilarious and so just out of nowhere. It was so good.
It's like it feels like a cop show thing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's
there,
great.
I mean, I think like this episode, I mean, throughout, but like it starts to add dimension to the characters too. Like you see Samantha's vulnerability very much when
Yeah.
she has that moment where she sees her date flirting with another girl.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Charlotte's promiscuous side,
Right.
even though it's with the vibrator, like this isn't what the like pure romantic would
Yeah.
do. And so
That's-
you
yeah.
start to get the layers of the characters. And like, I think that Carrie kind of has all of them in her, and you see that in this episode. Like, you know, she has a little bit of Samantha when she's telling Big that like she has him to sleep with. She has a little bit of Charlotte when she's wistful for, you know, this very traditional sense of romance and marriage, and she has a little bit of Miranda when she's talking to the girl who just got married, and she's like, is that really enough? Like, do you feel fulfilled? Like, that's kind of a Miranda like cynical perspective to take. So I think you just start to see the characters getting rounded out a little bit more and breaking out of their like very strict shells.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with Samantha on how she treated Turtle in the end
Oh.
because it was so refreshing when she's like everyone's talking about his breath and she's like, your breath's bad. He's like, really? And then it's like, oh, you fixed that. And then at the end she was like, I'm leaving, I'll call you later. So she started off with being like, I'm gonna just tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And then they had a
Yeah.
connection. And at the end, I just didn't understand why she couldn't say, like, hey, you're awesome. This isn't going to work out. Why? You talk too much about mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you leave.
Right.
What is
It
this,
was-
Phantom
It was
Thread?
undignified. Yeah. See, this is why it's valuable to, like, I've never talked about this show with heterosexual males. And so you get Turtle's perspective.
Yeah.
Like, you
Well,
get
no, it's
a
true.
voice for Turtle. Finally.
All three of us have terrible
Yeah.
breath, and we will have
No,
something to say.
But it's true because
It's true,
like
yeah.
you immediately stick up for Samantha, like, or because it's like, oh, I've been in those awkward dates and I've just wanted to leave, and so she's as girl. But it's true, like that was a very undignified way to leave, and they had been on multiple dates. Like, come on,
I think
you're
it's
a little-
especially because they started it with like the brutal honesty, which was
Yeah.
like, which was great for him.
And
Yeah.
then he said, and then it was interesting because it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I have halitosis. He was like, it's because I'm taking these weird Chinese herbs, and she's like, well, you're gonna have a long life alone. But there was something really.
I wish I
refreshing.
could have had a sex scene. I wanted to see Turtle just have the best sex of his life with
Right.
Samantha, but they never showed it.
I wish he would have
Yeah,
had the
they're
best
a
sex of
little
his life, but he had one of those Chinese face masks on the whole time to keep his breath in her face. He's like, oh,
No, you know, homeboy uses a CPAP machine.
he's got that apnea, sleep apnea. Darth Vader.
or Turtle. I wonder
But
where he
there
is
was
now.
something that was really cool about when she said that to him. That's a refreshing thing, especially for a guy, for a straight male. When you have those, I think they're sometimes few. Maybe they're more in New York. But when you have a relationship with a woman, when you're like, oh, this is totally platonic, and if someone
Yeah.
could say like, hey, listen, nothing's gonna happen between us. I'm going to be honest with you. I guess that wasn't totally the case with Samantha and him, but when she was just like, I'm going to be honest with you.
Somebody to sort you out.
Yeah. And then he was like, all right, cool. And then it was going to like, they had kind of a safe thing happening there. And then I think she just got annoyed with it after a while.
Yeah.
They
probably had to just wrap it up.
Yeah.
That's probably part of the
We got
episode.
to move on from Turtle real quick.
This is
we don't have 30 seconds for dialogue. We
That's
just
true.
have to.
so wait. Be honest with us, and spoilers are allowed here. So you're saying that that's the end of Turtle for
There's not a Turtle. It's the end of. I mean, that's
What a shame.
I mean,
No
I
more
don't.
Turtle Tower, Bernie?
I can't speak definitively, but like I do think that like season 1 and like the show doesn't quite yet have its own plot to fuel it. Like it doesn't have its enmeshed character-driven plot lines to fuel it. And so they bring in a bunch of little bits. And it's also like, you guys probably haven't read the Sex and the City book by Candace Bushnell. But the first season is much more the book
The
where
essays.
it's like bouncing around and like, oh, we go to this wedding. Oh, we go to this baby shower with people that you've never seen before. And as time goes on, you just get a little bit more. The episodes are building off of, Steve and Miranda, who are through many episodes, Carrie, and all these different things. So yeah, you get a few more guest appearances. But I mean, and Justin Theroux will come back.
Oh, really?
As a completely different
That's
character.
what I heard.
Wow.
He's totally a different person.
Yeah.
Which is
so that's
crazy.
Does he
another
play
just
Ernie
like your
Turtle
boss.
Tower? Bernie's brother?
No, he plays a premature ejaculator.
Oh.
That seems like, because he was a seemingly big character. Like, it's crazy
Right.
to have someone
It's
come back.
notable, yeah.
It's like when they would
Yeah.
replace the mom on sitcoms in the 80s. They'd be like, hey,
Right.
new mom on Valerie. or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I wonder what the backstory is, because like either one could have been a different person. But
The backstory on what's that show you said? Valerie?
Valerie.
Oh, okay.
It was an early Jason Bateman sitcom. It was called Valerie, and then they killed Valerie off, and it became the Hogan Family.
Oh wow. Well,
Deep sitcom.
on Fresh
Knowledge
Prince,
right
they
there.
replaced the mom.
Oh yeah, because there was drama.
Yeah, major drama, and there
Yeah.
kind of still is.
Still.
Yeah.
What is
Really?
that?
How is there still drama with that show? It's been
Yeah,
forever.
because she was really mad at Will, right? The
She's-
original mom.
Yeah, she still calls him out and still like has kind of a chip on her shoulder. I don't know if something
Was it
legit
because
wrong
he was
happened.
becoming a bigger star, or
No, she's still a bigger star than him. No, I would have to go and research, but I definitely know it was like a year ago or something. It was like back, and she was like still mad at Will Smith.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, because they were talking about doing a reunion. She's like, I'm not gonna have any part of it.
Ooh.
Which also the drama, I feel like this week, because I Google Sex in the City
Well,
to
of
see what
course,
news.
yeah.
And it was kind of sad because right now
Oh,
there's like a
yeah.
drama between Kim Cattrall
yeah.
and Sarah Jessica Parker, and
Well,
that made
Kim
me kind of
Cattrall-
sad.
Kim
Now that I'm
Cattrall-
starting to
yeah.
get to know them a little, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer because you do see them as like
yeah.
kind of like, oh, they're not friends
Right,
in real
you
life right
just
now.
want it to
Is
be real.
The
Yeah.
drama just seems like she won't do a third movie. She's just done with it, right? Isn't that the main drama, or is there more?
Who knows?
Oh no.
yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think
Although I
it's just,
did see something that I think it's probably a joke, but there was a thing where Ellen somehow got involved, and Kim Cattrall was like, "Ellen, I think you'd be perfect to play me in the third movie." And then Ellen
Oh
was
well,
like,
yeah.
"I'm in."
SJP was on Ellen,
Yeah.
and she was like playful because it is public knowledge that Kim Cattrall doesn't want to do a third movie,
Yeah.
and so Ellen mentioned that, and SJP was just like, oh, "You should play Samantha." And they made it. Ellen was like, "Oh, I'm very similar to Samantha."
Yeah.
and then I think Kim Cattrall like tweeted like,
I think she was like,
support
"I'm
this
all in," or
move
something like that.
Yeah.
That's actually Ellen's the perfect person to help calm those waters. She's just like the
Who can
best.
be- right.
Yeah.
Ellen should be just a mediator for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we do is we rank the episode we do it by Cosmos, 1 to 5 Cosmos, 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter Cosmos, and we're
okay.
keeping track of all of our episodes here. And since we sprung this on you, we won't make you go first. Corey, do you want to go first?
I'll
1
go
to 5
first.
Cosmos,
I will go first. I'm gonna give this a 4.5 Cosmos.
4.5.
I think that's the highest I've rated anything. And
Wow.
Part of the reason I'll say, I mean, first of all, this happens every time we do one, but the conversation afterwards always bumps it up for me. I think just seeing the themes. One thing that Dan brought up that I thought was so true is that you really get to see how each character is like settling outside their normal. So you get to see Charlotte go into this thing where she doesn't want to go out because she wants to stay home with the rabbit, and that's not really her. You see that with Samantha and the turtle. So I think there was a lot of good character turns, but also I was just impressed with there's so much happening. Like the Stanford thing seems like it could have been almost a whole other episode.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't even touch on that.
And I bet if you like broke it down, it was a total of like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was this like deep, meaningful.
So good.
I mean, the whole
similar.
thing about his grandmother being like, well, Stanford's a fruit, and Carrie having to like, I mean, that's a huge thing.
Huge.
And
I feel the same. Like when I rewatch Seinfeld, you always watch and you're like, I can't believe all of those things happened in the same
totally.
episode.
Yeah.
It's dense.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go 4.5 Cosmos for the denseness. Yeah.
Wow.
Kevin?
I'm going to go, and I looked back. I think this is my highest rating. I want to make sure it's my highest rating. Did I give someone? Yeah.
Well,
so
we don't know your
4.5. I think 4.5. I'm going to do that as well. This is my favorite episode so far, besides the pure joy of watching the pilot. Which was just, but I think this, and I do think it's because there was, like you were saying, Dan, like a little more depth to the characters, that it was, that scene when they went in to get the rabbit was hilarious and one of my favorite scenes. But the Stanford Blatch one, Samantha getting stood up by the guy, I was like, oh, wow. And so I think I felt for all of them in ways that I haven't before. And for that reason, I give it a 4.5 Cosmos.
I think, man, I want to be different, but I think I have to go 4.5 Cosmos also. One of my favorite scenes was when they're at the shitty diner eating pancakes and they're all talking about Carrie, talking about Mr. Big not wanting to be married. And I think although this episode did a really great job layering the characters, I loved that scene where they all kind of interjected their opinions on marriage. And I love when, when they're all four together shooting the shit, that's like what really is the magical moments of the show for me. And I love that one. Great episode. Stanford was fantastic. Bernie Turtle Tower, 4.5.
It's so good. And those are my like I live for those sort of like crossfire style debates that they have at the diners. And so I'm, just because I have the privilege of knowing the future, I'm going to give it 4 Cosmos.
Okay.
Just to leave a little buffer, because there are going to be episodes that will just blow your frigging mind. And also what happens later, so you'll notice like the fashion is quite simple in these early episodes. So what's going to happen later that you need to reserve some Cosmos for is there are going to be moments where character combines with setting, combines with fashion, that just makes your head explode.
I cannot wait.
Because like when Patricia Field hits her stride, it's
You're
just like it's beyond. But I just love the episode. I think it's a very, very classic Carrie monologue too. You know, like in a city of great expectations, was it time to settle for everyone? Like just these very, very classic, like she's finding her voice. And I think all the plot lines are beautiful and has a fabulous pun that we didn't even talk about, where when she said "meanwhile at the briar patch," when
we totally missed that.
I mean, she's a journalistic genius. So amazing episode. But you know,
got to reserve a Cosmos.
There are some moments.
Got to save those Cosmos.
This is, before we go, I wanted to ask you, were there any outfits from this episode that you have on your Instagram?
Not yet.
Okay.
But as I was watching it, I feel like when this podcast comes out, I should like line up.
Oh my God.
Oh, that'd
be great.
Yeah.
Honored.
So I'll watch it again. I mean, there was a because she was very minimalist in the early episodes. There were a lot of just like very sort of Calvin Klein-esque minimalist silhouettes. In that, you know, I mean, I'm sure part of it is just getting money for the show. Like this first season, nobody knew that it was going to be this like groundbreaking thing. But yeah, there was this really great, she was in the closet and it was just a minimalist dress, but it had this strap across the shoulder. So yeah, maybe I'll pull that one together.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, our that's been since our first few episodes, we didn't have guests because we were just figuring out how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And since we've had guests on, that's been the thing that we've realized that we forgot is a main part of the show is we're like, oh yeah, the fashion.
Right.
Well, but you're also not there
guys
yet.
watching
You're not
it.
there yet. Like the first, I mean, obviously everybody looks beautiful, but the first season, I mean, that brunch, they were all wearing things that the other people could have worn. Like Samantha was in a red sweater, like Charlotte was in this blue thing. Like that. Once season 2 and season 3 start, the outfits are never interchangeable. Like Samantha is always in something that is so Samantha. And Carrie isn't always in something that is so Carrie. And that hasn't really happened yet.
Okay.
So you will naturally start talking about the fashion because it'll become just a bigger
That's great.
part of the show.
We're primed for it.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Yeah.
There was a part at the
it's
wedding
great.
where Carrie smelled a flower to get away from Turtle
Yeah.
Tail's breath. But is
Ooh,
the
foreshadowing.
the flower thing is a Carrie thing that comes up? Like,
Huge,
is
yeah.
that seems like that was foreshadowing or just like something of her and flowers that happened throughout the show?
Yeah. I mean, she'll have a flower phase where she's just always running around with just like a
can't wait.
gigantic
And
flower.
Can't wait.
on
It's
her
always
shoulder.
it's just an homage to Turtle. It's her. It's the
I never even realized
The one that got
yeah,
away.
It's
The
all
layers here.
It's all a throwback to Turtle.
Awesome. Well, where can we find you on social media? What? What's your handle?
It's just on Instagram. It's just Dan_Clay.
Awesome.
at Dan Clay,
Thanks,
Carrie Dragshaw.
Your appearance from Watch What Happens Live is on your Instagram.
Yeah,
account, so
yeah,
you can watch
yeah.
that. Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. When we
This is
started
so
this,
much fun.
this is like our dream. We're like, he's not going to respond. So thanks for coming
thank
on.
you. This was super fun.
Once we'll find out what your favorite episode is in the future, and we'd love to have you back for something when we can talk more about
That
fashion.
would be awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you guys very much. We'll see you next week with episode 10.
It's a good one.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much.
See you later.
Thank you.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, John Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balin. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys, and if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.